Welcome. Good morning, Gearheads. Formula One is back after the summer break, and we just watched Oscar Piastri put it on the pole at Zandfoort at the High Banks in Amsterdam. And we got Chris Medland and Bob Varsha with us, and this is Jon Massengale. I'll start with you, Chris. How are you, bud?
I'm not too bad, cheers, guys. I'm just roaming the paddock, trying to see who we can get after that one, but it's good to be back.
It is good to be back, and I'll go out to you, Bob Varsha. Bob, you're out in Lime Rock in Connecticut at the Lime Rock Historic Festival. How are you?
I'm doing just great. Thank you, John. You may be able to see outside the window. I'm in the insiders area. Don't mention that or I'll get thrown out of here. But we're having a great time this weekend. Lime Rock is one of my favorite tracks in the world. It's absolutely beautiful New England Saturday here. And I have a special guest, and it's appropriate that you meet him during the Formula One qualifying. David Hobbs, ex-Formula One driver and my partner on the air for the better part of 3 decades. Great to see you again, Dave.
Well, the dynamic duo meets again here in the rolling hills of Connecticut. It's a gorgeous day. It's a great day. It's wonderful to watch qualifying from Zandfoort. Unfortunately, the last qualifying from Zandfoort, from what we hear. But as always, it was a tremendous duel between the 2 McLaren drivers. And Max Verstappen somehow in that Red Bull managed to get himself up in the 3rd spot. So it could be a pretty exciting race tomorrow.
I know you've been following Formula One since we parted as a team on the air. But what are your impressions of Formula One currently?
Well, I suppose the first thing that impresses me is how incredibly close all the teams are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously the regulations are designed to make it so. But when you look at them, when I was doing Formula One, people like Jimmy Clark and Graham Hill were duking it out. There'd be a second or a second and a half between first and second on the grid. Now, you're lucky to have a second in the top 10.
Right.
So qualifying well is just as important as it's ever been, because overtaking is even more difficult than it's ever been, because the cars are so evenly matched. And it's one of the prices you pay for having parity across cars, is that overtaking becomes more daunting than ever.
Right.
And when you see them racing wheel to wheel today, sometimes, even my heart goes down to my throat. They are so cutthroat, but it's wonderful to watch, I think.
Yeah, and that's the irony, is whatever they do to try to make for more overtaking, they wind up with less because the cars are all so equal. Anyway, great to see you, David. We'll get on with the show for all of our folks.
Great to be here.
Thank you, David.
Yes. David's
That's great.
got speaking engagements. I've got a few, but again, it's a great weekend here. Hundreds of vintage cars. Everything you can imagine, all lined up out there. So, on with the show.
All right. Well, we got to talk about this because it was a great showing from McLaren. Both cars breaking the lap record. Norris, then Piastri. So, really amazing. And Chris, I want to get just your quick overall take here from qualifying today.
Yeah, boy, was that close, was it? 12 thousandths of a second. And
Yeah.
I'll admit, I had my money on Norris the way this weekend had been panning out up to that point. He looked more comfortable. He was obviously so dominant here last year. And now we've seen Piastri making great strides this season and throughout his F1 career. But I just thought Norris looked like he was on top of things from the word go this weekend. And then, it just didn't quite come together on that first lap. Same again at the end of that second lap. But the margins are so fine. What was really cool was McLaren sent them both out at pretty much identical moments. So they were running really close together on track. And you could see mini-sector by mini-sector how it was changing, the ebb and flow. And they were never more than like half a tenth apart on any point of either lap, which was just so exciting to follow. But I think it could be a crucial one, because if Piastri can hold the lead at the start, I think around here where it's tough to overtake, as David was just saying, actually, when the margins are so fine, I think Lando will have a real job in his hands to get that lead back. So, early advantage Piastri, but what a close fight to kick off the second part of the season.
Yeah, and really not unexpected, Chris. I say that, but I did see a couple of internet polls. I say unexpected that the McLarens are out front, but I think the internet was with you, because every poll that I saw was saying everybody was expecting Norris to take the pole. But like you said, 12 thousandths of a second. It's anybody's poll there. But Max Verstappen in P3 at 26 hundredths of a second, 0.263 behind Norris. So that honestly, I'm a little surprised at how close Max is. I don't know. I guess I shouldn't be, huh?
No. And it's interesting to see that the top three, Piastri, Norris, and Verstappen, are the only drivers that made it under 69 seconds for the lap. So this will be an interesting battle. But as David was saying, as they try to bring the field tighter together, you don't see as much passing. Here's one of those tracks where the gaps are a little bit wider. Obviously, it's a short track. Obviously, everybody trying to get their best lap in, but it's obviously a very challenging one because then you get into the 109s and the 110s. Yeah, it's interesting. We'll have to see how it works out when the green flag flies.
Well, maybe one of the biggest stories is Isaac Hadjar in P4. Wow. And both cars looking good for racing, both Lawson and P8. But Chris, another continued fantastic showing for Isaac Hadjar.
Yeah, really impressive from him. It was a bit of a surprise, wasn't it, as well, because we were all watching Verstappen on that final lap that he was on and keeping tabs on how close he was going to get to the two McLarens. And then just ahead of him, Hadjar put it in. And yeah, that was a really good performance because he's not looked comfortably quicker than his teammate all weekend. And then when it mattered, he pulled it out, not only to, I think it was about 0.3 quicker than Lawson, which is a surprise given how close they've been all weekend, but then to beat George Russell. Fantastic performance. I'm actually trying to position myself. It's a very busy paddock here in Zandvoort because they split it. It's such a tight circuit. We have all the hospitality units at one end, and then all the engineering trucks are behind the pit lane, a little bit of a walk away. So there's two separate paddocks, and I'm trying to position myself to grab someone from Racing Bulls. I don't know if Alan Permain's going to come back down here. I've seen Peter Bayer, the CEO, but he's gone into F1 for a meeting. But I want to get someone from that team because that was a really, really strong performance.
Well, we got to watch the poll because since Zandvoort came back to the calendar in 2021, every single race has been won by the pole man. And so we'll see if Oscar Piastri can do that. But like you said, Chris, Lando's looked good all weekend, so we'll keep an eye on that. But let's look at behind Isaac Hadjar. Like you said, George Russell just right behind him. And then followed by the two Ferraris, Leclerc and Hamilton. Good to see Hamilton competitive with his teammate, though, Bob, because he's right there with him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Lewis is obviously desperate for a good result. And if you can't beat the whole field, the one driver you do want to beat or at least run competitively with is your teammate. And the last 4 weeks, we've had so much to hash over with Lewis and his comments about I'm useless, they should replace me. The guy's got high standards and he is struggling like, say, Carlos Sainz with a new car, new team, strange environment. You have all those issues to work out between you and your track engineer and the team. It's a challenge. Then Lewis and Sainz are both struggling with it. So, this is a step in the right direction. And I should note that Carlos Sainz had a pretty good day going today, too.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that Albon, his teammate, was not happy with his car. But, Carlos Sainz finishing qualifying here at P9. I mean, he's not out-qualified his teammate most of this year, so he's got to be happy with that. And then, of course, Fernando Alonso, both Aston Martins looked good this weekend, although the Stroll spent a little time in the gravel, and again in Q1. But I'm sure Alonso's happy, and I think he's out-qualified his teammate most of the year as well. So, hey, Chris, I know you're out there hunting some interviews, but the weather held up so far today. But what's it looking like now?
Yeah, beautiful. I must admit, wasn't really expected. The forecast has been so up and down all weekend that every time you come to the track, you don't know what you're going to get. But it's pretty breezy, but it's eased up a little bit at the moment. The sun's still out, and as I said, it's an absolutely packed paddock that we've got, and people are enjoying it for that reason as well. Quite often, it can get a little bit quieter because people are sheltering from the weather. Certainly was the case on Thursday. I can tell you that we had a heck of a downpour that day. But today it's been much nicer so far. Can't say it's going to be the same tomorrow though. It could be very mixed tomorrow.
Hey Chris, are there the usual thousands and thousands of bicycles? Because what a unique way that they have the track set up, because there's just not much access for cars. Is it the usual?
Oh, absolutely. More bicycles than the eye can see, I can tell you that. And there's endless trains as well running back and forth from the middle of Amsterdam out here to the North Sea coast. So I'm pretty sure I've got this figure right. I think it's 97% of the fans come to this track on public transport or bicycle. Only 3% using a car. So, I mean, it's really, really impressive. It's by far the best figure of the year. And they do a heck of a job because, as you can see from some of the overhead shots that you see of this circuit, it's so tight, so narrow, but also hemmed in by the sand dunes, which makes it a beautiful setting. But when you want to get 100,000 people into a place like this, you know, you'd think it'd be impossible, but they do a really good job of it.
Oh, that's great. What are we, about 20 miles from Amsterdam?
Ooh, now you're asking. Yeah, maybe about that, maybe 30. Maybe a few more from the middle. But it's about a half-hour train ride straight through the little town of Haarlem. Well, not that little, actually, but a lovely town of Haarlem. So, yeah, beautiful part of the world, especially when the sun's out. But I must admit, I enjoy it too when it is raining because it really does mix things up for us. And I kind of want that tomorrow. As good as this has been today, as great as qualifying was, especially the fact that Max has put it third and up there right behind McLaren's. Add some rain, and I reckon there's that little bit extra hope that he could do something special for these home fans.
Especially in view of the fact that this is going to be the last Formula One Grand Prix at Zandvoort, at least for the foreseeable future. And that really kind of bothers me. This track is a
Sorry
standout.
to interrupt you, Bob, but you know, can't break the habit of a lifetime. But I've got Laurent Mekies here, the Red Bull team principal. And Laurent, you happy with that P3 with Max today? It was a pretty special lap.
Yeah, it was very, very special actually. No, you know, I think P3 today was the best we could have done. The guys have been trying all weekend to put the car in a better window, and Max has been doing a fantastic job. You know, to get that out of the car today, I think it was the best that could have been done, and it's a very good improvement compared to where we started certainly yesterday morning.
I think I saw a comment for you recently that Max does a lot of unseen work and is really impressive away from the track too. But how much work has been impressive in terms of the rest of the team? Overnight, Red Bull seems to do such a good job from a Friday to a Saturday to improve a car at each venue.
You know, it's a very good example of you know, the spirit of the team. You know, we were not happy with the car, and the guys kept trying, kept experimenting with the help of the drivers to try to put the car in a better windows, and up until after FP3, still couldn't get the balance exactly where we wanted it to be, and they kept trying, and they certainly extracted everything they could from the car.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time. Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you, Chris. The point I was making
Chris,
was...
I was wondering... Oh, go ahead, Bob. Go ahead.
Well, just the fact that this is said to be the final race here because it's entirely funded by Jan Lammers and his team and their sponsors. And that just rubs me the wrong way. This track really needs to be on the schedule, much like places like Silverstone for its history, like Spa for its speed and beauty, you know, on and on and on. You can make a case for so many of these racetracks. Conversely, there are a number of tracks, I will say, in my opinion, who it wouldn't matter one bit to Formula One if they were not on the schedule. I wish Lammers and his crew could do what they did at Silverstone a few years ago after the track invasion. I think it might have been for a Nigel Mansell victory, if it's that long ago. So they said, okay, we're not going to sell 140,000 tickets or whatever. We're going to limit it to 99,000 tickets. And that's all, folks. Maybe have a drawing for some of those, a lottery for some of those seats. I would just hate to see this racetrack go away. End of rant.
I know it is a gorgeous track to watch, but go ahead, Chris.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to add to that. It's next year's the last year, though. Don't forget. So you do get one more year.
Oh, 2026.
They actually extended by 1 year to have the big last hurrah. So all the signs around here, actually, as you come in as well, do say like one last dance or something like that, one more time. So they're trying to make sure that they get those ticket sales for that final race as well here. But who knows what this track will be like with next year's cars? Could be quite a test actually with the changing settings in terms of low downforce on the straight and high downforce in the corners. Could be quite a fun one.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. And, hey, Chris, you had Lauren Mekies there. I was wondering if I could have jumped in, I would have asked him and probably not been this brave, but I would have loved to say, hey, how would Max Verstappen have done in the Racing Bulls car? Because it sure feels like that it may be the faster car right now.
It does. That's a good point. I mean, I don't know if maybe I could put that to him tomorrow morning, or kind of quieter time. So I'd admit, I could tell he was in a bit of a rush. He was polite enough to nod and say he'd give us a little bit of a chat, but even after one answer, he was trying to kind of shift away, and I always wanted to get a second one in. But yeah, maybe tomorrow I'll try and get a bit more out of him on that front, because I'm still with you. I can't remember who I spoke to recently who said something similar, where they said it would be really interesting to see, and that it is regularly talked about within the team. That, just what if? What would it be like? And there's a lot of people that say, yeah, but that car's not designed around him. And of course it is designed around him. Because it's not that neither car's designed around him. He just finds a way of driving any car quickly. And if the Racing Bulls is a, dare I say, easier car to get on top of for any driver, well, Max will find it easier to get on top of too. And he'll just push its limits in a way he pushes the limits of any car. So it would be some experiment.
Yeah, I think he could probably get on top of it, Chris. What did he jumped in that GT3 car and set the lap record on his first lap or something like that. So I think Max is pretty good at getting up to speed. But, hey, we got to give Isaac Hadjar some credit, though. This is a career best for him, 4th on the grid. We talked about it a minute ago, but I didn't realize that was his career best. I probably should have immediately, but that's it just shows how good the car is and what a great year he's having. So really big kudos to him and really the whole team. I mean, Laurie Mekies has got to be, he's got to be loving life, Chris, right now. He's got the Racing Bulls team in a good position. And now he's taking over the reins at Red Bull. Did he appear to be in that good mood?
Barely. I think, to be fair, straight after a session, already thoughts are turning to, okay, what we're going to do for tomorrow. What from here? There will be also appearances and other things they've got to go and do. But as I mentioned, with the split paddock as well, with getting to debrief can be pretty tough, fighting through some of the crowds to get up and down different parts of the track. So he may well have had that on his mind as well. But he's been very approachable, very calm, very similar to how he was at Racing Bulls. But he's obviously got a lot of work on his hands to turn that team around still. So I think he knows that that's not what they're targeting. As much as we talk that up and say what a great result, if we'd have gone back 12 months, we'd think that was disappointing to be nearly a quarter of a second off the McLarens, wouldn't we, over one lap? So I don't think we can lose sight of what Red Bull's targets are, and that's why he's not walking around beaming. And also, he's pleased for the Racing Bulls drivers, but he has moved on from that team now. He's let go of those reins, and he just wants to make sure that, if anything, he makes the gap bigger between Red Bull and Racing Bulls.
Yeah, that's true. Well, all right, guys, let's get a quick break in. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the rest of the top 10. We got some drivers that are going to be disappointed. Some may be happy where they are. You're listening to Speed City F1, back after these messages. All right. Okay, great. I am checking in on the YouTubers to see who's here and there. And there's Joe of Oyster Bay, and Mike Bowles is here. Kevin Kelly's here. Kevin Kelly said, wow, Lando was on fire all through practice, and Oscar just got his bucket out and put Lando's fire out. Great to have racing back. Yeah. Mike Bowles was happy to see Habo. He says the Klagmeister.
There you
so
go.
is David Lawrence.
He
says the dynamic duo back together again.
Damn straight. I think 8th place for Liam Lawson is within shouting distance of his best of the season, certainly well above his qualifying average all season long to this point. So everybody at Racing Bulls got to be pretty happy.
Yeah, I think he's maybe at a top 5, top 6, maybe.
Did he?
Yeah,
I thought 6 maybe was his best.
Yeah, that sounds about right. He's definitely not been top 4.
By the way, I want to finish David Lawrence's comment on YouTube. He says, the dynamic duo back together again. This makes my heart smile. F1 and sports car racing for me growing up was watching Speed Vision with Bob Varsha and David Hobbs.
And Sam Posey.
Feel good, Bob.
Yeah. Last night, Sam was one of the 2 inaugural installation or induction from the new, basically a Hall of Fame program here at Lime Rock Park. It's called the Legends of Lime Rock. And Sam was here with his wife, Ellen. Great fun. Great to see old
I
Sam.
have fond memories of Lime Rock myself. I did a Skip Barber school up there one time. I didn't do the open wheel school there like I did at Willow. But all right, here we go. Coming back.
I'm George Russell, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
Thank you, George Russell. Probably fairly happy with his P5 in qualifying today, but we want to touch on the bottom 10 here. And Chris, I'll get your take on Kimi Antonelli, right behind George Russell in the team garage, but quite a bit further back, finishing in P11 in qualifying.
Yeah, but what was the gap there? 21 thousandths of a second? I mean, the margins are so tight you get through and not. And I mean, the problem then is you don't get the chance to do your lap in Q3 to then move up further. So, yeah, the gap looks bigger, I think, than it is. I think that there were positive signs. There was improvement from him. He looked a bit more confident, I think, than he had been because he missed FP1, don't forget. But, yeah, that's going to sting, that one, because if he had just got the right side of the line, I think we'd be seeing him further up the grid. But that's going to make it tough for him tomorrow. I wouldn't guarantee he's going further forward because he's got Fernando Alonso alongside him and he's not going to give anything up easily.
Alonso? No, I don't think so. I agree. And, Bob Varsha, what do you think about Kimi Antonelli's? His season really started off pretty good, but he's really honestly been struggling, I have to say. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, we need to recall that the car has let him down on a couple of occasions, back-to-back 2 or 3 times in the first half of the season. And he will start 11th, so it won't be Alonso next to him. It'll be Yuki Tsunoda. But be that as it may, Antonelli has been just such a weird case. He arrived in Formula One last year with a bang, doing a free practice 1 session when he balled the car up by driving way over his head, in my view. And I fault the team for not sort of keeping his head on straight by giving him specific lap times to hit. But be that as it may, I think he was also done badly by all of the expectations coming in. He's going to take Lewis Hamilton's seat. Hamilton had his own expectations to meet with his new Ferrari team. So I think Kimi is, how would you say it? I think he's better than he has done this year, even with that first career podium in Canada. I think Antonelli is not as, I don't want to say bad, but he's not had the first half of the season that he expected, but that's okay in this context. If the conditions are right, he's obviously, he belongs in Formula One.
I like that phrase, better than he's showing this year. Would you agree, Chris?
Yeah, kind of, yes. Yeah, like the potential certainly is. I think what we're seeing is just how tight it is, how difficult it is, but also the natural ups and downs of a rookie in their rookie season. Let's throw it back to the positive of what Isaac Hadjar's done today. But for quite a few weeks now, we haven't been talking about him doing like the best job, or at least getting the same results as Liam Lawson on the other side of the garage, who's had a good run. Like, you get these ebbs and flows, I think, naturally between drivers, but certainly when there's rookies involved. And I think we have seen that from Antonelli, but that's exactly why he's in there now. Because if this Mercedes is competitive next year, it should be strong. Whether it'll be the strongest car, I'm not too sure, because I still would back McLaren to build a quicker car than Mercedes at the moment, given the same engine. But let's, for argument's sake, say the Mercedes is capable of winning races. Well, then you want him to have got this year's experience under his belt, as tough as it might be at times. And I do think it's key for him in that sense. So yeah, I totally agree with Bob that the potential, the peaks are higher than we're seeing quite often. But I think he needs to go through these dips. It's the only way. We're just seeing it a bit more obviously because he's in what we would call a front-running car compared to some of the other rookies who, if you don't perform well in a racing ball to, yes, you're at the back of the top 10 at the moment, or you're just outside it. But maybe in some other cars, the Sauber, for example, you can drop out in Q1 and it's not a huge deal made. But when you perform well, it is a big deal.
Right. Well put. And it's like we were talking before about Hamilton and Leclerc. You want to be close to your teammate, if not beating him. Antonelli has not been in that position very often this season. But what I would guess what the team is really looking for out of Kimi is improvement in the second half.
Yeah, good point. Good point. And look, both drivers still waiting on contracts. Is that right, Chris? There's nothing happened this weekend, right?
Yeah, that's been a bit of a strange one, I'll admit, actually, from my point of view, at least hearing George Russell talking about it. Before the summer break, when we were in Hungary, he admitted it had not been the most reassuring time to not have that contract yet and to have had maybe doubts over his future based on the fact that Mercedes were sounding out Max Verstappen a little bit. So he seemed keen to get it done. And at other times, he's kind of said he doesn't understand why it's taking so long. But then he spoke on Thursday and said, I'm not in a rush. The team wanted to carry on negotiations through the summer to get it sorted. And I was like, no, look, I want the proper time off. Let's leave it. When it's done, it's done. There's still details to sort out. And he said it'll be a number of weeks still, he thinks, at least a number of weeks until they'll be back in a position to announce anything. And I was just thinking, that's such a change in tune compared to before the summer break. Right. I found it very odd. So it's mixed messages. One source in the team did say to me, look, George doesn't have a lot of leverage. He doesn't have control over his own future because he's managed by Mercedes anyway. So maybe he's just trying to make it seem like he does have a bit more say than he really does.
Well, yeah, that is a bizarre situation that he's essentially negotiating with himself and his team. But it is weird that it's taken this long. And, I'm left with the impression that George knows more than he's telling, that the team has said to him, maybe, here's how far apart the goalposts are right now. We'll get it done. Don't worry. Go about your business. Rather than just sort of, is he going to drive next year for Mercedes or not?
Yeah. I have to agree with both of you guys. It just seems weird right now. And I don't know. Obviously, we had Max Verstappen before he got locked in with the way his results have panned out. It's just weird. I don't know why they're doing that. But I'm going to move down the order here in qualifying, because after Antonelli was Yuki Tsunoda, the other Red Bull, and again, it's the same thing, Chris. He's way down the order behind his teammate Verstappen, where he's been all year, but the time is really not that far off. But, Tsunoda has just kind of fallen off the radar, really, hasn't he, because of this?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get time to ask Lauren Mekis anything about him there, did I? But I also felt like just the story, it was kind of where that car often is. And it's not just Yuki, is it? Let's be honest. It was something very interesting that Sergio Perez said after the announcement at Cadillac, was that everyone's seen now, whoever's in that second seat really struggles to score points and get a lot out of it. And it's not just down to the driver. And he said what quality drivers both Yuki and Liam are, and yet they've still ended up in this position where they both have struggled between them to score points. I think it's 7 points in total from the second car at Red Bull. So just outside the top 10 is about where it normally is. Yuki actually said he was pretty pleased with how it's feeling and how he was driving, and it just didn't quite have enough to get it further up. So, that's an indictment of where that car is.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, good. Yeah, and Chris, where is Tsunoda in contracts for next year and on?
Very much out of it. I think realistically, I'd be surprised if he was staying put. I think that's a seat that's going to change over the winter. He will be there till the end of the season. That's guaranteed. That was something that actually was agreed with Honda when the swap was made so early on between Lawson and Tsunoda. Obviously Red Bull could easily have been chopping and changing all season long if they wanted to, with the way they sometimes treat their drivers. And they said, no, we'll put him in, we'll give him the whole season with his experience. But essentially it's like, well, that's kind of it. He's got to show us in that season that he can get the results that we need, and he's got to deliver them. And if we're honest, so far he hasn't really, has he? I mean, not got close to what Verstappen's been able to do, who's just walked past me actually, heading, I think, for a sponsor appearance, looking at it. So he's a busy boy this weekend, as you can imagine. Because of what we've seen from Max, no one else really seems to get close to him. But Yuki's not done enough so far, I think, to really force Red Bull's hand to keep him. What I don't know is what they do in that second seat next to him. I don't know which way they go with it. Because right now, what would you guys do? Would you promote Hadjar, having seen what happens to the second driver there, and he's only got one season of experience? Would you put Lawson in after some good recoveries, but still the pain of what he suffered in the first 2 races, and the fact that he's still inconsistent? Or do you look elsewhere? Do you look outside? Because I think they want to promote Arvid Lindblad into one of the Racing Bulls seats next season. So, if they do that, then they need to move one of the other 2 aside.
Yeah, good question. Bob, what do you think? I mean, look, the cars are so different. That's the problem, right?
Here's what I think. There's always Alpine. I'd be very surprised if Franco Colapinto is in that seat next year. And so guys with reasonable performances are definitely candidates to replace him, I would think, especially with a maverick like Flavio Briatore running the program. Red Bull's got that problem of supply exceeds demand. It looks like Arvid Lindblad is a very worthy candidate. Crazy days.
Yeah, but he's so young too, just like everybody, and it's just as we've seen success, but we've also seen expectations not met. So really, really tough position, and I don't know. I mean, you get excited about Hadjar, but like we were saying earlier, what if you had Max in that car, or if you had Tsunoda back in that car, where would he be right now? It's a really tough spot. So, all right, let's continue looking at qualifying here. After Tsunoda in 12th, Bortoleto in 13th, and he's been looking a little better than Hülkenberg, which is really surprising to me. What do you think, Chris?
Well, I think we've seen a bit of a trend this season that Bortoleto's had the upper hand in qualifying. And quite often, Hülkenberg's been dropping out in Q1, or certainly comfortably out-qualified by Bortoleto, but then been much stronger in the race. And some of his results have been stunning, given where he's actually started from. So I think Hülkenberg's podium came from, 16th, 17th, 18th on the grid? It was a long way back in Silverstone.
Yeah.
So I don't know quite what it is. Hülkenberg himself has said this afternoon, actually, after qualifying, that he's just not quite got the tiny little margins right, and not quite getting everything out of it that he thinks is there. And I think he's sort of putting half the blame on himself and half of it on kind of execution and setup. But then he says when it's so close, that does knock you out in Q1 when you could certainly get it a bit further. But as we saw with Bortoleto's lap, they didn't quite have the pace this weekend to get through to Q3, and it's looked like that all the way through actually the weekend so far. So I don't think it's actually that unusual between the two of them. It's more how tomorrow pans out. I think the thing that should maybe worry Hülkenberg is the fact that Bortoleto is obviously, just like Antonelli, he's gaining that experience. He's only going to be stronger for it. And with every qualifying lap, that's one thing, putting it together and showing that raw pace. Putting it together over a race is harder. That's why Hülkenberg's maybe had the upper hand. But that's where Bortoleto is getting stronger. And more and more often, he's going to start really troubling him on a Sunday as well.
Yeah, and Chris, the stats are Bortoleto's outqualified Hülkenberg in the Grand Prix 9-6, and in the sprint 2-1. But in the race, Hülkenberg is 8-5 over Bortoleto, and points wise, Hülkenberg's 37-14. So yeah, you're right. You as usual, you hit it spot on there. So, Bob, any comments on Bortoleto?
I think he's a real talent. I'd be interested to know from Audi management whether they plan to keep him aboard. We figure Hülkenberg is a shoo-in for an Audi seat when they take over Sauber entirely. But I think Bortoleto puts Audi in a position where they found buried treasure. Suddenly we've got this rookie who is showing real performance. So no matter who else we were negotiating with about the seats at the Audi factory team, it kind of takes on a new complexion when you have a talent like Bortoleto who's discovered. Remember, I didn't know what to make of Bortoleto when he came into the sport. Yeah, he'd won a championship in Formula 2. But, it wasn't front and center for so long. And now, it's a great thing. There may be some competition for him when the season comes to an end. It's kind of a good situation, I think, for that team to have Hülkenberg and Bortoleto. And I'd keep them both.
Good problem to have. Absolutely.
Well, it's not actually a problem for them, guys. Bortoleto is on the contract. He's signed for next year already. When they signed him, they brought him in on a multi-year deal. Yeah, I think, like you say, Bob, everything you kind of say was right, but they actually knew it too. They tied him down straight away. They wanted a lineup that was one that would carry them through into 2026 as it becomes Audi. So Audi themselves were looking at the drivers that were being brought in. And a bit, again, like Antonelli, you wanted someone who was going to cut their teeth when it was maybe tougher, which it was at the start of the season, but learn in this first season. And then you've got a more experienced, more rounded, but very quick young driver come the second season. So that's the logic there. The only seats that are actually unconfirmed for next year are the 2 Racing Bulls seats, the Red Bull seat alongside Verstappen, the 2 Mercedes seats as it stands, and the seat at Alpine alongside Pierre Gasly.
Awesome. All right, guys, we got to get a quick break in. And when we come back, we're going to talk on some of the things we haven't even mentioned yet, including the new Cadillac drivers and a giant new sponsor for McLaren. Here's to the Speed City F1 back after these messages. All right, checking in on YouTube, man. We got lots of great comments from all the guys. We haven't had time. Andy P's here. Let's see, anybody else new that I haven't touched on? Bill Ricker's here. But yeah, let me back up a little bit. Kevin Kelly said he thought Alonso would have done better. David Lawrence, Ferrari being Ferrari. We really just barely touched on Ferrari. We may come back to them a little bit. Kevin Kelly says, don't send Hadjar to Red Bull. Yeah. Who knows, Kevin? Things are different there now, so we'll see. Isaac Hadjar having a day, kid. P4. Yep, well done, David Lawrence. Joe Vorshabay, is Lawrence selling? Yeah, there's been I really haven't followed that closely enough. Let's see. David Lawrence, the Netherlands using public transportation for the race shows the rest of us in the world are sorely behind. Well, they're making it work. Making it work, aren't they?
Yep.
Todd Dauber's here. He says, still sad not to see Max on the pole at his home race. That is only from a Max Verstappen fan's perspective. I tell you what, Todd, man, I was telling you this on Wheel to Wheel. I'm really enjoying Max Verstappen right now. I feel like it's a new Max, but he's so much fun now. I mean, I swear he's I've just watched him on all these different videos, the Ford video and him getting in sports cars. He's just been a different Max to me. He's just matured and enjoying his, multi-championship status. So
maybe he's enjoying that Ford relationship, and he's getting good news from them about where the powertrain is at for next year.
Yeah, who knows? Yep. Mm-hmm. Andy P says, always enjoyed Sam Posey on Speed. Bob, David. Yeah. All right, here we go. Coming back, guys.
Hi, this is Max Verstappen, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We have not touched on, first of all, we're all settling in nicely after the break. It's fantastic to be back talking Formula One. But we haven't talked about the biggest story of the break, and that's Cadillac have officially announced that Valtteri Bottas and Checo Perez will be their drivers. And we're going to get into that more tomorrow, but we had to touch on it today because it's such a big deal for us, particularly here in the United States, having Cadillac coming in. And I was telling a buddy of mine, I had lunch with him. He doesn't follow Formula One like I do, of course. And he said, wow, they're just getting started. And I said, no, they've been working on this car for 2 years, and before they even officially had been approved. So it's just going to be so much fun to watch Cadillac. And Bob, we'll get into it tomorrow, but just what's your quick take on Checo and Bottas as drivers?
I think it's a great move. You know, well, maybe not as much as some fans out there who want to see an American driver in one of those seats. I want to see that too. But right now, there simply isn't one. There's no super license out there. And so the rumor started that Colton Herta, the highest paid driver in IndyCar, might go to Formula 2 next year to work on that super license. But one way or another, I think they made the best decision having Perez and Valtteri Bottas. I'm sorry, I keep looking out the window here because there's race cars going by just outside my window. Yeah, I think that they did the best thing. They got all of those, 500 something career Grand Prix starts. Yeah, I agree with the decision. That's the one I would have made. But nobody trusts me to do that.
You agree with Bob?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with him too, that right now there's just not an American that's kind of ready for that position, because that position needs experience. Like, that team needs all the experience it can get. Jack Crawford might end up with a super license, but he doesn't have one right now. And you need your driver to be working on helping the team get ready right now. So if they're not someone who's experienced and available, because don't forget this, Checo's available, could do the job right now. Valtteri will be doing some stuff, it looks like, but it's still a Mercedes reserve. But Jack Crawford, for example, would be still with Aston Martin until the end of this season. So you wouldn't have the ability to work closely with the driver as part of all that prep as a new team either, if you didn't go for at least one of those two that they have picked. I'd like to add that it's not a rumor. I'm taking exception of Bob's use of the word rumor on Colton Herta. I've been doing quite a lot of digging on that. You might have seen it on Racing.com actually last night, but I've been told that every Formula 2 team I've spoken to so far has been approached about running Colton Herta next year. What I don't have is what's been agreed with any team, if anything yet, but it shows the intention or the exploration is very much happening. So they've been looking at it and seeing what might be possible on that front. And it's not just super license points, don't forget, though, on this one. And I'm sure we'll get stuck into this a bit more on tomorrow's show too, but that's multifaceted, because the thing with experience, when we talk about Bottas and Perez as well, is they've got experience of all the tracks on the Formula 1 circuit. They've got experience of Pirelli tyres. They've got experience of the way a Grand Prix weekend works, of the way these paddocks work, of the way that everything's set up. And that's something Colton Herta certainly doesn't have. So if he comes and does F2, he'd be closer to the F1 team. He'd get to work with them at a number of races, but he'd get to race on 14 of the circuits that F1 races on, because they're all support races on the F1 calendar. And he'd get experience with Pirelli tyres too. It would really build out his experience across the board in that sense. So I can see the logic very much there, even though it seems like an odd step for a 25-year-old who's a multiple race winner at IndyCar level to come across to the F1 feeder series. There is value to it. And if you're going to do it, you've got to do it now, because you've got to prepare him for the time that you might look to replace one of those two experienced guys in a couple of years.
Yeah, and, you know, the one thing we haven't talked about with regard to Colton, you know, he may do this, may do that. What does he want to do? I mean, he's very tight-lipped when it comes to what his plans are, what his desires are. He's got a multi-million-dollar home down in South Florida. Remember the Michael Andretti mistake back in '93 of not wanting to decamp to Europe. And so he kept flying back and forth across the water rather than going and digging in with the teams at base. So, Colton Herta needs to think long and hard about this. His dad, Brian Herta, is a very, very switched on guy, and I'm sure he's giving him all kinds of great information. But it must be interesting to be Colton Herta and have all these people talking about about you without you being involved in the conversation. And by the way, Chris, I consider everything a rumor until you tell me that it's a fact.
Fair. And right now, I can't tell you it's a fact that he's going to do it, but I can tell you it's a fact that they're talking. So, I'll admit on that one. That is a good point. I think Colton must be interested. Otherwise, surely he'd have told Dan Towris and everyone at TWG not to do it. But you're right. So far, all he's done is dodge those questions. Maybe because he's been told to, but maybe because he's not sure what's going to happen. I do want to just switch gears slightly, because I said I saw Max Verstappen going to a sponsored event or demand just now, and I was wrong. he wasn't. He was going to see the stewards. It turns out that Max has been summoned for driving unnecessarily slowly, and it's on the cool down lap. Basically, it's at 16:02, which is 2 minutes after the end of qualifying. So he's been summoned for driving too slowly when he's finished his final lap, which is a surprise because quite often I saw it was going to be looked at for something, but it's normally the out laps going too slowly when you're not allowed to basically back everyone up or be dangerously slow when everyone's on fast laps. But so it's all about your out lap when they talk about that. This is on his in lap, which is a strange one. But yeah, he's had to go to the stewards. I actually spoke to his trainer briefly in our last break, who was a bit confused by it, didn't know what it was. And then when we saw the time, he's like, I've never known anyone being pinged for that before. But he's going to have to go and have a word. It could well be a warning. I don't think it'll be much more than that unless he'd actually put anyone in any danger with something that went on. And we didn't see any shots of that. And normally the cameras would pick that up. So I don't expect the penalty there, but that's where he was headed.
Wow, there's some breaking news for you for sure. So we'll have to keep an eye on that and see how, Chris, could that affect grid positions?
I don't think so, no. It could, theoretically, but no, I believe that's most likely, looking at what he's been accused of doing, I reckon it will be a warning, a driving warning, or even a reprimand, which, if you get a few too many of those, you will get a grid penalty eventually. But in isolation, I don't think he'll get one.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Look, we just got a couple minutes left. I'd have to mention this huge story of McLaren teaming up with MasterCard for next year. Going to be the MasterCard McLaren F1 team for 2026. I didn't see that one coming. Did you, Chris?
No, I didn't actually. We got invited to the event in the middle of Amsterdam on Wednesday and wasn't actually available to go and do it, but they didn't push it so hard as if it was a title announcement. They did say it was a kind of like a fan activation with MasterCard, who were already a partner of the team, it must be said. But they've expanded that. And it's the first title partner they've had in over a decade. I believe it was McLaren was the last one. Technically, obviously, Honda was in the name when it was its power unit supplier. But yeah, it was. It's the first one in a long, long time. And I've seen Luke Smith from The Athletic, journalist I rate highly in the media center, saying that it's an estimated $100 million a year deal.
Wow.
Pretty soon you're talking real money.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting. I when you say that, Chris, immediately my mind jumps to the Formula One movie, how immensely successful it was. It is. I don't even know. I mean, I say it was. It's still going. It's back in the IMAX theaters. And
a couple of days ago, $600 million worldwide.
Yeah, and now you can watch it on Amazon and other streaming platforms. I guess coming to Apple anyway. But that's what came to my mind is how the exposure from that has increased it. And I saw one of those heat maps that shows searches for F1 versus NASCAR, which outperforms F1 on ESPN. It was just really, it was a fascinating map. But guys, we are out of time. And Bob Varsha, it was really cool having you at Lime Rock, one of my favorite tracks, man. I still have my Lime Rock t-shirt that I bought in the 90s from that track. You really got emotions going. I recognize the window frames where you are. I love Lime Rock. I need to go back there. But thanks, Bob Varsha, for joining us. And tell David Hobbs, thanks for coming on our show. And
guys, let's try and get one quick word out of Alan Permain, very quick, so let's end the show.
Yeah.
Alan Permain, Racing Balls team principal. How good was Isaac Hadjar today?
Very, very impressive. A great result for him, for us, and especially after the day he had yesterday where he didn't run at all in FP2. So, yeah, really good. But let's not forget Liam as well. He's up there as well, both in Q3 again. Fantastic day.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you. We've got to go. Cheers.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Don't forget, tomorrow morning, we'll start at 8 a.m. Central with the Prix show. Talk to you then.